So it's been quite some time since I've talked about a Nickelodeon show on the channel. The last time I made a video talking about any particular Nickelodeon show, like when it came to a video where I was just focusing on one show itself, was probably the SpongeBob video that I made when it came to the early stages of this channel. And that was around a month ago. So it's been quite some time since we've talked about anything Nickelodeon related in this channel. And I feel like it makes sense for me to switch it up a little bit so we're not always talking about all these different kinds of shows coming out from Cartoon Network, which we still will talk about those shows within these videos that we do. But I feel like it's only right for me to talk about another Nickelodeon show that I really enjoyed watching growing up as a kid. And that show that we're going to be talking about today is Rugrats. Rugrats is another show that I grew up with as a child. It's a show that I definitely watched a lot of. I watched a lot of the show. I watched a lot of the movies that it had, like the Rugrats Go to Paris, the original Rugrats movie, and of course the crossover that we got with the Wild Thornberrys. And then of course we had the All Grown Up series, where it was pretty much showing us like the Rugrats growing up as teenagers, which I thought was a very unique concept that they did. But there's a lot of things I want to say about Rugrats in this video. Like I want to talk about my favorite characters. I want to talk about like the whole theme of the show, my personal experience at Rugrats, the lessons that I learned from the show growing up as a kid. Yeah, it's just gonna be fun talking about Rugrats because it's just a very fun show. It's a classic Nickelodeon show, and if you had the opportunity to watch it growing up, then you had a hell of a time watching one of these classic Nickelodeon cartoons. So since we're on the topic of discussing my favorite Rugrats characters, I want to talk about Tommy, because I probably have to say Tommy's my favorite character when it comes out of Rugrats. And I don't know if that's just like a me thing, but I noticed there's like a common trend when it comes to me like liking main characters in like certain series, because when you look at like various TV shows or movies you watch, it's usually like the side characters that like really shine, that you really love. But for some reason with me, I just really get attached to the main characters of the show. Not saying I don't like the side characters, but I tend to really like the main characters of the show, because I think the main reason why I liked Tommy so much growing up is because Tommy kind of reminded me of myself as a kid, because I remember being just like Tommy, having a big heart, I still do, but also being that one person that was always trying to come up with all of these different kinds of ideas to see like, oh, okay, let's do this today, let's see if it's fun. Because Tommy did a lot of that in Rugrats. He always brought everybody together. He cared a lot about his friends, just like I did. And he always came up with like these various things for them to do throughout the show, like we've seen with these countless episodes of Rugrats. So I'd probably have to say Tommy really sits with me as a character, just because he reminds me of myself so much growing up as a kid. And then you also have Chuckie, which Chuckie, he's an adorable kid. And you probably had a friend like this growing up, where you had that one friend in your group where he's like, oh, okay, maybe this isn't the best decision. Maybe this isn't like something that we should do, because we could potentially get in trouble, or we could put ourselves in danger. Because Chuckie's like very cautious with everything that he does. Like he wants to make sure that he's not putting himself in a situation where he won't know how to get himself out of. Like Chuckie's just always been like that ever since the very beginning. And also Chuckie and Tommy, they're best friends, they care about one another, and it's honestly kind of hard not to like Chuckie, because he's just like that sweet innocent character that you just root for throughout the show, where you just want him to be happy and you want him to have a good time with his friends. And then of course you have Phil and Lil, which I love Phil and Lil because they're twins, and they always get into a whole bunch of stuff, or if they're like playing in the mud, or they're like fighting over a toy, or whatever the case may be, they're just very enjoyable just watching throughout the show, just seeing the different kinds of things that they get themselves into. You also have Angelica, which is another personal favorite character of mine. Like if I had to say like who like my top 3 favorite characters of Rugrats are, that's probably Tommy, Chuckie, and Angelica. And I just really like Angelica because I always think it's like pretty funny. Like whenever the parents leave, she goes up to the baby, she tells them what to do. And you probably were reminded of like somebody like this growing up, where it's like you're growing up as a kid and then you come across like that one kid in kindergarten that's like always telling you what to do, or that one person that's always trying to pretty much be like in control of everything. That's pretty much who Angelica was. She always told Tommy what to do. She always told the other babies what to do. She always tried to involve them in these different kinds of things that was kind of like weird for them to get involved with to begin with, but she was just very controlling. She was just very bossy, and it's hard not to like a character like her just based on her whole personality. Like when it comes to a character in Rugrats that has like this big explosive personality that you can look back at and you can remember like countless moments throughout that show, Angelica is definitely a name that comes up when it comes to a character like that. And obviously there's other characters from Rugrats as well that I didn't mention as well that are also pretty awesome, but I just wanted to name those characters because those were the ones that really resonated with me, that I really had a deep connection with, and I really followed throughout the Rugrats series. And now I honestly want to talk about like my personal like experiences like watching the show, because like I mentioned before of the other cartoons that I talked about on this channel, this is another show that I grew up watching as a child. It's one of those classic Nickelodeon cartoons that I loved watching, and I'm really attached to a lot of the shows that I grew up with. That's why I'm making a lot of videos on this channel talking about them, because when it comes to a series like Rugrats, it's one of those classic Nickelodeon cartoons. Like that was around the time when Rocko's Modern Life was a thing, Cat Dog. You also had like SpongeBob there. It's just a whole bunch of series around that time when it was like the early stages of Nickelodeon, when you were getting all of these classic 90s cartoons. It's just one of those shows that like really stuck with you, where you're like, oh my god, I can't get this show out of my head. There's just so many great moments looking back watching this, and it's honestly kind of hard to say if we ever get classic cartoons like this anymore, because things are so different. Obviously as time goes on, things evolve, so I definitely understand that, and I understand why the cartoons that we have nowadays are a lot different than the cartoons that we had back then. But I guess talking from like my perspective of like cartoons that I grew up with, it's just like a different feeling I have, where it's like, okay, you know, I grew up with the show, I had a lot of memories watching it, and it was just fun just overall, just like watching Rugrats. Like you had the TV show, which I spent endless amount of hours watching. You also had the movies, like the Rugrats movie, and you also had the Rugrats Go to Paris, which were two awesome films that the Rugrats had. And then of course you had the Rugrats Meeting the Wild Thornberrys, which I'm a huge sucker for crossover movies. So when I had two shows that I watched had a crossover where you had like different characters from those said shows interacting with one another in that said movie, I thought it was a pretty awesome concept. I absolutely loved it. And I can honestly say, like, when it comes to like the things that Rugrats taught me growing up as a kid, it definitely taught me to like be myself and to enjoy my childhood, because when you're a child, you only get a certain amount of time to like live your life as a child and experience a lot of different things growing up, because then eventually you'll become a teenager, you'll become an adult, and then you'll eventually become like an old man that I will eventually become down the line. So it's like you always got to cherish your childhood, because you only have so much time with it, like I said. And that's definitely like something that Rugrats taught me growing up, was to cherish every moment that you have in your childhood, and also cherish your family, your friends. Always try to make as much memories as you can with them. Always make sure that you have a lot of fun with them. Rugrats was the perfect show to explore that theme of friendship and family in childhood, and it's definitely a show, like I said, that I can always look back at and say, you know what, I had a blast watching this show growing up as a kid, and I'm honestly happy that I had the opportunity watching it. But like giving other thoughts on like Rugrats, I never really touched the remake or the reboot or whatever you want to call it. I do know that that came out not that long ago, but I never actually watched it yet. I do know, at least for the most part, that I know of the remake or reboot or whatever you want to call it again, that it's pretty much like Rugrat episodes that we've seen. It's just modern animation to go along with it. So based off of that, I'm pretty sure it's not different from what I saw originally, but I haven't really touched the remake. So if there is any people out there that have watched the remake, be sure to let me know your whole thoughts on that in the comment section down below. But I just love Rugrats. I mean, it's another classic show from the 90s on Nickelodeon. I mean, it's kind of hard not to like shows like this, because it's just full of nostalgia, where you're like, wow, I actually had the opportunity to watch something like this and it was pretty cool. And also just giving like a few thoughts on like All Grown Up, because I do want to mention that in this video as well. I do like All Grown Up because I thought it was a very unique concept to explore, where you saw the Rugrats as teenagers and you see them in middle school. And I just thought it was just really cool seeing, like, okay, like as a kid, I never really thought we were going to see something like that. Like, I thought watching the show as a kid, we were just going to see them as babies throughout the entire show until that ended and there was no more movies that came out. But the fact that we actually saw something like that was actually pretty cool. So you could actually see how they progressed as people growing up, like as babies, now looking at them as teenagers. So I thought that was a really cool concept to explore, and I did enjoy watching it. But like, other than that, that's honestly like all my thoughts on Rugrats. Like, I'm honestly happy that I had the opportunity to sit down today and talk about Rugrats, giving you guys my thoughts on how I feel about the series overall. So now I'm curious, like, how you guys feel about Rugrats. Like, what are you guys' thoughts on Rugrats? Do you guys have a favorite episode of Rugrats? Do you guys have a favorite character from Rugrats that you guys want to share with me? Or if you guys have any overall thoughts on Rugrats that you guys want to talk about, be sure to let me know in the comment section down below. And also, if you guys enjoyed this video, be sure to like and subscribe. I really appreciate it. And also be sure to check out my social media when it comes to my Twitter, my Instagram, and my TikTok. It is located in the description below. As always, make sure to click on that bell for notifications so you guys are notified whenever I upload a new video. But other than that, I hope all of you guys are having a fantastic day, wherever the day may be, if it's the daytime, the nighttime, or the evening. And I'll see you guys in the next video. As always, peace out.